Is overlapping neural processing a full and complete explanation of synesthesia? In other words, just because we can compare people's brains, does that tell us everything we need to know about how the brain and conscious experience works? If your answer is yes, then by all means shut down this video now, because my question has to do with what modern neuroscience is discovering about the age-old mind-body problem. Neuroscientists themselves don't settle on a neural correlate theory like that as a full explanation. They keep on researching. Still, some of them go so far as to say the brain simply causes all conscious experience, end of story, end of investigation, end of science. The good news is that this discovery about neural correlates in synesthesia was certainly enough for people to bring it out from a third-rail pseudoscience into the mainstream for investigation. But only after they asked the right questions and looked at the evidence did they discover something worthwhile. As you have probably guessed, I would like to ask the same series of questions about people who have reported contact with UFOs or extraterrestrials that they simply call beings. Many people would say yes, they must be lying, crazy, and it's their imagination. So they start looking for examples of people who resemble that. Unfortunately, the story of so many reporters does not change over time, which makes that difficult. But their reluctance to talk about it sure seems to settle the matter for skeptics. Surely these contacts know what they are saying is not true, not because of the stigma, but because they are out of their mind. That, my friends, is not very scientific. So, where am I going with all this? Well, I'll tell you. I'm going to lay out a series of 9 steps to support a claim that this UFO-ET hypothesis is plausible and that it is not pseudoscience or that it doesn't have to be. So, I ask the same questions about UFO-ET claims as I do about synesthesia. I am wondering what the best explanation is for some of these claims of encounters. Not all of them. I am proposing it warrants further study and requires the best of all specialty fields. And rather than just dismissing all the evidence, can it not be considered a delusional and a third-rail science just for a minute? Can we study the phenomenon as if it were something studied like synesthesia? I am not suggesting there is a neural correlate that can explain UFO-ET encounters as some kind of brain abnormality, but I am not ruling it out either. I'm just asking the question, is it okay for some people like me and others to look into it without all the stigma and ridicule? So, here is a statement made by Jacques Vallee, a researcher into the UFO-ET hypothesis. You should know that Vallee spent a great deal of his time in writing papers debunking the commonly held beliefs about the UFO-ET hypothesis. He says there's no reason to believe that they're surveying the Earth or coming here for human samples, nor should there be any reason why they would be anatomically similar to us, bipedal, having 2 eyes, a mouth, arms, and legs. Yet, here is his bare-bones description of the UFO-ET hypothesis, which is the one I will be using for this presentation. Some UFOs are best explained as being extraterrestrials or non-human life from other planets occupying physical spacecraft visiting the Earth. That is Jacques Vallee's bare-bones UFO-ET hypothesis, and so it is mine for the purposes of this presentation. Let's start with some of the work that has been done. Some people have taken the time to look at the reports as if they are evidence of something. MUFON has collected an enormous amount of information, but our Omaha UFO Study Group has recently likened that pile of data to a landfill. It is a big pile of stuff just rotting away. So, just take a look at some of these types of experiences as a list of different synesthete reports of their various experiences. Some entities are inside or outside a craft, some are nearby, sometimes there's no UFO around, sometimes it's just some sort of intelligent communication being reported. I have previously laid out in an 8-part YouTube video my recommended approach to studying UFO-ET claims using the method I have called Integral UFOlogy. So take a look at that if you want to. But my questions in the meantime are these two. What would be a good enough explanation to bring ufology out of a pseudoscience? Perhaps we would need to take out some of the extreme and outlandish claims along the way until we get to the core of what is happening. I am totally fine with that and look forward to it, actually. But secondly, if we were to find some neural correlate, like a study that found encounters with beings were associated with administered hallucinogens like DMT, dimethyltryptamine, or some other cultural, biological, or sociological correlate, would that be a full and complete explanation? My point is I think we need to be very careful in making assumptions about what causes what as we start to examine what little evidence we do have. I said I would get to the point, and here it is. I'm going to propose 9 things we know about life, consciousness, and our universe that together suggest a UFO-ET hypothesis is plausible or should be considered plausible. To do this, I will offer indirect evidence that will be supportive of the hypothesis. I will offer circumstantial evidence that could just as well be accepted in a court of law, and most importantly, I'm going to make inferences, which means I will not offer a complete explanation. That is, I will not habeas corpus ET here. That means produce the body. I'm not going to lay ET out on an exam table for you right here in this video. Sorry. I will simply use inferences to lead those interested to what should be done next on this journey that may have no destination. Here is one common objection. This is the first item. We haven't found life elsewhere, so there's no reason to believe it is out there. Now, forget the illogic of that assumption and look at what we do know. There are likely 10 billion planets in our galaxy alone capable of sustaining life as we know it, with atmospheric pressure for liquid water. It turns out the water molecule is a more common thing than once thought. We have water on the Moon and probably Mercury and Mars. In fact, there's good reason to believe the water molecule is on all 9 planets in our solar system, as well as some moons like Europa and even on asteroids. So it's not likely other solar systems in the Goldilocks zone would be short on water molecules. Now, this formula at the bottom is the Drake equation, and I'm going to give you my personal estimate based on the discovery of all these new Earth-like planets we keep hearing about. The number of stars times the fraction of those with planets, P, capable of supporting life, E, those that go on to produce life, L, those that go on to produce intelligent life, I, those that produce technology, C, and the length of time for it to get here, L. We have about 300 billion stars in the Milky Way, and the latest estimate from scientists discovering Earth-like planets are that 10 billion of those stars would have planets orbiting them that are capable of sustaining life as we know it. I am saying that to get to that 10 billion estimate by the Kepler Space Telescope and scientists at the Niels Bohr Institute, the Drake equation would have to have 100% of stars having planets, and a little over 3% of those would be habitable. I'm going to argue that 100% of those habitable planets would have some life, 10% of those would have intelligent life, and half of those would have technology capable of reaching us. I will also argue that L, or the length of time for signals to reach us, is irrelevant, or 100%, because that is based on the speed of light as a limitation, not discoveries about quantum entanglement, which I will get to later. So, my estimate of the Drake equation is 500 million intelligent alien civilizations with more technology than ours potentially capable of visiting us.